Hello, my name is Motherhood and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We talk a lot about Jesus, interracial marriage, parenting, motherhood, everything in between, lifestyle. So welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and call your friends. Share some of my content on how to read the Bible, and just tell your friends to come join this Jesus community. And today we're still in the month of Mother's Day. So let's just talk about my motherhood journey. How did I become a mother? And I know motherhood looks different. It's very diverse. Sometimes it's circumstantial. And guess what? I'll share with you my birth story to my first child. And also share some of the lessons that I've seen in regards to motherhood and my faith. So let's talk about how I became a mother. I know motherhood looks different. The journey sometimes comes through circumstances or just life gets in the way. But for me, when we got married in October 2018, it just wasn't a journey that it felt easy. So we got married, we were missionaries, we were between doing mission trips, moving to Kenya. So we kind of put it on the back burner, feeling like, okay, we want to have kids, but you know what, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it's not that big of a deal, but we both wanted to become parents. And I remember sometimes just having to cry through the shower and thinking, am I going to be pregnant or not? Because you dread, in our African culture, you dread meeting people and they're like, oh, are you pregnant? When I'm having kids, you're not getting pregnant. What's wrong? Do you have a problem? And it was close to being, I think around 8 months into our marriage, we both went for a checkup and everything was fine. And that dampened me to think nothing is wrong, but we're still not getting pregnant. And 1.5 years later is when we see those double lines on the pregnancy test, and it was one of those exciting things, but also scary of thinking, is this thing gonna last? What if something is actually really wrong? And I shared it with my husband. We were in lockdown, that was March. And I surprised him over dinner, and he still couldn't believe it because it's one of those things of, you're probably joking with me, you're on a high, and you just want to get me too excited. But after it soaked in and we shared with family first, till I think 12 weeks is when we shared with friends. But for me, my journey was one of those that I thought once you get married, it's one of a walkover. I didn't have any serious reproductive health issues, so I thought it was just going to be one of those journeys of, I'm good, we're married, and yes, we're pregnant. But for me, it took 1.5 years, and that's how we got to motherhood. Now we get to my birth story. Now, I am a pretty decent height person. I am a 5'2", so I had so many things, like people if you're that short, under 6 feet, and you gain a lot of weight, you could have a difficult pregnancy. Or if you don't stay active during your pregnancy, you may have difficulty during your birth. And for me, it wasn't the case. I was a very active person. I would walk, I think it was 5 miles a day. I don't remember, but I used to time it on my phone. And I was very fit. I would go up the hill even before my husband, who's medium average size. And I was in panting. I walked till the last day of going to the hospital. And I remember it was a Sunday. We didn't have electricity, so there was a lot of lightning and thunder. And my husband said, you know what, it's raining, so I'll just wake up early and go to the sitting room. And that's when I started contracting at around 3 in the morning. And I had always asked my doctor, how will I know that I'm in labor? And he tells me, Melda, you'll know, it's different. I had a couple ups and downs during the pregnancy, so I used to keep asking, how will I know that I have to go to the hospital? And at 3, I was woken up by this pain, like uncomfortable and quite painful that you cannot sleep through it. And I was like, you know what, I'll wait. I woke up, I repacked the hospital bag and everything else till 6. It started increasing. I was timing the contractions, and there were 3 minutes apart. And we stayed in Tebe, so the hospital was in Kampala, and we had to wait during the time. So I'm like, okay, we gotta go to the hospital before it gets pretty serious. And I remember driving through the hospital. I had always told my husband, when I'm in labor, I'm not sitting in the front seat because I'll probably pull your hair off. And I sat in the back and it kept timing the contractions. We called family and we told them both sides of the family. And everyone was excited, expectant, at the same time wanting to be there in time. But we go to the hospital and the doctor tells me I'm just 1 centimeter dilated. But the pain was extreme. So I'm like, can we go back home? And the doctor is like, you're staying in town, but we don't know how fast this can go. So we ended up staying in the hospital. And it reaches 3 in the afternoon. No, I think it was 11 in the morning. And we go to the hospital around 7:30. And at 11, they check me again and they're like, you're really having serious contractions, but you're just 1 centimeter dilated. I'm like, okay. I walked around. They would tell me to drink all the tea. I'm like, I could not. And at 11, my doctor tells me, we're going to put you on the drip that increases your contractions. And I'm like, all right. So that got a little intense. I got to 4 centimeters by 3 in the afternoon. And I was out of this world. My friends then had come and my mom to the hospital. And I remember I would walk and just hold them so tight whenever contraction came in. And it reaches 4 p.m. and they tell me, oh, you're just 4 centimeters. I'm like, all right, pretty decent, we shall hold on to. But we all had so much anticipation knowing it was going to happen that night. And my doctor comes back at 6, he's like, okay, you're 4 centimeters, but you're dilating pretty well and the contractions are good. So we're all hopeful. I was exhausted. And my doctor is like, I don't think we're going to have this baby later than 10 in the night. So if my doctor comes at 9, he tells me, the baby is timed in the right direction, but they have hiccups and you have hiccups too, so they could be tired. And I remember they put me on glucose medicine and my contractions stopped and they told me sleep and we shall come back at midnight and check on you. I'm like, okay, great. And we rest, we all get food, I shower properly. I'm like, okay, we're ready to get back into the contractions. My doctor comes back at midnight and he tells me the baby's heart rate is still high. We cannot put you in contractions again. So we all sleep through and 6 in the morning, they check me, they're like, okay, you can do the contractions again. Now this is Monday, 4th January. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this again. And I contracted the whole day. I was still at 4 centimeters till I think 8 in the evening is when they broke my water and they found out that she had pooped inside. I am at 6 centimeters at this point, excruciating pain. They've broken my water. I am almost screaming my head off. And the doctor tells me, that we have to go to the theater. I'm like, what? We came here yesterday. I was very hopeful. Can you give me 30 minutes to let's see what happens since you've broken my water? He's like, no, the baby has hiccups, their heart rate is high, and they have pooped inside. The last thing we want is for them to ingest this and it gets in their lungs or even get infections. And I remember sitting there very numb. I keep telling my friends that in that moment, I felt very powerless. But I also wanted to have my child because I knew how much it took for me to get to that point to even hold my child. And they just rushed me to the theater and I had an emergency C-section. But I remember in that moment when we came back home and it felt like all that I knew about motherhood was a lie. Because one, I did not have the natural birth that everyone is like, oh, you did amazing, you're strong, but it felt like I was powerless in thinking that I was fit, I ate healthy, I did everything right for me, for my body and for my child, but it just didn't happen. And motherhood on its own, or how you become a mother, looks very, very different. I think we had said if we had went 2 years without conceiving, we were going to try other ways and see if it was IVF or anything. But how many of women out there become mothers in different ways? IVF, surrogacy, like anything to become a mom, it's still a precious gift. And to me, my story didn't feel like the ordinary, powerful, strong woman story like that. I grew up hearing of, she was in labor for all these hours and she pushed her baby. I didn't get that. And it took me a reverse of thinking. I still held my child. We still came out alive, and here we are still doing life. And there was times that I used to call my friend. She also had an emergency C-section, and we would both be crying on the phone and thinking, can you imagine we didn't have all that we wished for? Because we're pregnant around the same time, so it was easier for us to share. And she told me one time, Mother, you came out alive, the baby came out pretty strong. Our recovery was longer and quite dramatic, but we still did it. And I remember one time when I was sitting down to read, I was like, Lord, why did I have to go through that? I wouldn't have been walking the hills every morning. I wouldn't have been going the extra mile to have the bath that I wanted. And I felt the Spirit telling me, do you want to know what would have happened if you didn't go through the theater? Do you even want to know if you would have had that child alive? And that was such an awakening moment of knowing I was holding the precious gift I cried for, I prayed for so much. And here they are. They're finally beautiful and cuddly, and they almost look like me. Well, they didn't look like me when they were born. They looked like their father, but it was just a time for me to see that it didn't happen the way I wanted, but God still was with me in those moments. And that's how I became a mom. And I want to share some of the lessons that I have grown to know through this journey. I've been walking this journey 2 years. Our oldest is 2 years and 3 months, 4 months, and the youngest is 8 months. And the greatest lesson for me is, it is not just about mothering. It is about intentionally raising God's disciples, like raising people that love Jesus, that are proud to say, our parents are Christian and we have to do this. We can't do this at home because we're Christian. And to me, that was the beauty of seeing that I'm not just doing this because, well, we have children. No, it was because I am raising little disciples. And I've said this a lot of times, even on my Instagram, on here, just saying, I'm raising little disciples, so I better be intentional about it. And that means for me to ground myself, to put myself in areas that God wants me to be in, to be obedient to His word, to read my Bible every day so that I can have the right knowledge and wisdom to raise them. And I've also grown to find that motherhood doesn't look the same. What could work for you may not work for me. How you became a mom may differ from how I became a mom. But well, the whole goal is to raise these little disciples in a godly way. And for me, that has been it for me. It's such a beautiful journey, a lot of ups and downs. I sometimes feel like I just want to put my kids in time out throughout the whole day. But then I come back and I'm like, oh, they're the greatest little humans. And if you're out there, I hope you're encouraged no matter how you become a mom. If you're a mom in waiting or you're TTC, for us, what helped us was, I think there's a cream that you use, but we got that from the States, and that's what I used. And I also started taking prenatals before my period, so a month earlier, and then the next month is when I found out that we're pregnant. But everyone's journey looks different, and feel free. I mean, it is your journey. Embrace it. It is that gift. Enjoy it. So if you're a mom out there, I wish you all the best on this journey. Know that you got this, and God is on your side. And if you enjoyed this, please share it with all your friends. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Imelda Naziato, and see you next time.